Hi, I'm Pete Padula, Director at Chelmsford Telemedia, and today I'm bringing you a brand new show called The Q. What's The Q? Well, it's the brainchild of Lisa Marrone, Chelmsford's Business Development Director, and a few of her friends and colleagues who decided to get together to try to find answers to the questions we may have about the quandary we all find ourselves in, namely, the coronavirus pandemic. So whether it's your work life or your home life, we know there's all kinds of concerns out there. And for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to hope to answer some of those questions. Stand by for the Q.
Welcome to the Q. My name is Lisa Marrone. I'm the Business Development Director for the town of Chelmsford, and we put this group of people together to provide an interesting perspective based on our experience and knowledge about the community of Chelmsford and things that are happening in relation to COVID-19. So what I'd like to do is maybe start with my colleague and coworker, Jen Melanson, as the Community Services Coordinator in the town, and hear from Jen on what's happening in regard to social issues and socioeconomic issues. I apologize, and just hear from Jen what's going on.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks. So, as you mentioned, I'm the Community Services Coordinator for the town of Chelmsford. It's a very busy time for me right now, as part of my job is helping to coordinate social service programs for folks within the community. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of needs right now. So today, what I wanted to talk about was actually some coping mechanisms for dealing with the pandemic. You know, everybody's lives have been disrupted between schools being shut down and jobs, non-essential workers being, advised to stay home and work remotely when they can and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to offer up a few tips for coping during this time that hopefully people will find helpful. And I think the first one that makes the most sense to me is, where we've transitioned from actually those of us who work outside of the home, from leaving home and working in the workplace, and now we're staying home. It's disrupted our whole routines. So I think it's really important that folks establish a new routine and stick to it. So that means, sticking to regular wake up times and bedtimes. They might not be the same as when you went to bed and when you woke up sort of before you were staying home, but you could establish sort of a new normal now. You want to make sure that you're having regular meal times as well. I think there's huge temptation. I know there has been for me to kind of do this sort of all day grazing because I'm in my home and I have access to my kitchen and my fridge, and we're shopping for 2 weeks at a time, hoping not to have to go to the store so often. So, but that sort of thing is just really disruptive to the day. So if you can try to stick to regular meal times. I think another really important thing to try to do is to try to keep separate work and living spaces. I know it's not possible for everybody. Not everybody has a home office. A lot of people are working, at their kitchen island or their dining room table or something like that. And, that presents added challenges. But even if you're having to do that and you don't have a separate designated workspace that you can sort of leave and close the door on at the end of the day, even if you just pack things up at the end of the day. So you get up in the morning and you go through your morning routine and you put out all your work stuff wherever you're working from. And then at the end of the day, pack it up and put it away. Because I think one of the things that we've lost most during this time is the ability to be able to leave work and go home. And when you're leaving everything out on your kitchen table or on your island or something like that, it's almost as if you never get to leave work. And it's very important to, make that distinction between when the workday is finished and when your day at home begins. So that's a really hard thing to do, but I think something that's really important. Another thing, self-care is such a buzzword these days. Mm-hmm. Everybody's into self-care. But I think right now it's even more important than ever. And self-care is different than self-soothing, right? So self-soothing involves things that bring you comfort and pleasure, which may have to do with self-care, but can be a little bit different too. When I think of self-soothing, I can think of things like taking a bubble bath, or, eating some ice cream, or binge watching your favorite TV show or something like that. And while those are soothing and feel good, it's not necessarily self-care. It's not, some of those things are not necessarily the best things for you to take care of yourself, right? So when we think of self-care, we think of things like exercise and, meditation, and there's lots of great videos on YouTube and lots of apps to help you with meditation. But it's also things that are really hard and really difficult, like keeping your space clean, keeping up with your laundry, maybe keeping up with your medical appointments. Most doctors and physicians have gone to telehealth and are still keeping up appointments that way. Also, keeping up with your finances, making sure you're staying on top of your bills. And, a lot of people don't think of that as self-care, but it really is, because it's caring for your financial health. I think one of the important things about self-care too is that you have to schedule it into your day, just like everything else that you're scheduling. You're scheduling meetings and you're scheduling projects, and you're trying to schedule your meal times. You need to schedule self-care too, to make sure that it doesn't fall by the wayside and that you actually are able to follow.
They're all such very excellent points that I think we all can really relate to. I'm listening to you explain all of that, and it's something that I think we just need to hear from someone to provide. It's like some of that makes certain sense, but I think we need to kind of hear it, and it helps to provide some level of normalcy is what you're saying affects me in the way that you have to create the new norm, whatever that is, in our environment and our coping arrangements. It's probably that we are all in different types of environments, and even though we're all at home, like you're saying, we all don't have the same space and circumstance, but creating that new norm that helps us adapt and still be able to contribute in the way that we are here today in contributing. So I really appreciate your perspective. I know that you and I talk often. I did reach out to you. This whole thing kind of a little bit started because of my difficulty in coping with the isolation with my mother in her rest home and nursing home type of thing, which is how I got connected to Karen at Visiting Angels. And then thankfully, Jen, you connected us in with Megan, and we'll be hearing from her as well. But thank you so much, because I can really relate to each and everything that you said, even though I'm business development and you're more of the social worker. The circles are overlapped. So I'd like to kind of hear from Karen a little bit more on some of those caregivers and engagement with seniors during the isolation, and the show called The Queue, relating to questions, quarantine comments. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are in regard to Jen's comments of self-care and your comments on caregivers and engagement in this situation we're in here.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm Karen Woodrow. I am with Visiting Angels. We are a senior home care provider. And during this time of the stay-at-home advisory, and when all non-essential businesses are closed, Visiting Angels is open and running. Our caregivers are like your doctors and your nurses. We are essential workers, because our goal is to take care of seniors in their homes and to keep them safe and healthy. So the stay-at-home order is really helping our caregivers, because they themselves are less exposed, and so they can go safely into seniors' homes to take care of them and keep them engaged. So I know, Lisa, you're having a hard time because you can't go see your mom because she is in a facility and they have closed their doors for their residents safely. Right. But there are still a lot of seniors that are in homes that do still need the visits from their families or from a caregiver. So if you have a senior that you are taking care of, for example, my mother is 92 and she lives alone in an apartment, and she is feeling isolated. She's antsy because she can't get out, but I do still go visit her, and I do still send my visiting angels caregiver in to see her. We are both trained for this kind of situation, and if you have a senior loved one that you can go visit, the things that you do when you go into the home are the same things that you probably do in your own home. When you come in from the outside, you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds. I'll watch the CDC video on how to wash your hands. It's excellent. Disinfect everything regularly with the Clorox wipes and something that has the disinfectant to kill this virus. Refrain from physical contact with them. You can. My mother unlocks her door, and then she goes sits down. When I walk in, no matter where I am, I'm 6 feet away from her, but I'm still able to take care of the things, and most importantly, provide her companionship and conversation. So if you are going into your senior's home, make sure that you still practice the physical distancing, but you can still provide them with the conversation and the companionship that they need. If you are living far from your loved one who's a senior, there are lots of things that you can do to stay in touch. You can just have regular phone calls. I recommend increasing the frequency of your phone calls. I talk to my mother every couple of days, but in this crisis, I make sure that I talk to her every single day, and the conversation is quite hilarious. It's like Groundhog Day. Mom, what's new? Really, there's nothing new. There's nothing going on in any of our lives that is more or less interesting than it was the day before.
That's funny.
But still,
when I call my mother, I'll say, "Hi, Mom. What are you up to? How's it going? What are you up to?" And she'll say, "Oh, I'm up to about 5'6" now," and every time I walk right into it every time I ask her the same question, and I laugh at myself because I'm like, I walk into right into her little trickery every time, but you have to add that into the lighten it up, as best you can.
That's good.
And,
you're listening to Jen. Routines are important.
Right.
Same job every phone call.
I am. I'm listening to Jen. Yep. Right. True. True. It's every day I do my best practices as I can to survive this this pandemic. And so how can you not be overly anxious when I have to turn off the news some days. I can't even get those updates because it just creates a little bit of I have to be able to maintain some coping mechanism, right? Because I myself, I have a teenager working at Market Basket, and my mother is in isolation. So it's just like this, and I know many people are in much worse, dire situations. And so, here we are trying to help each other through it. So I appreciate your thoughts, Karen, and I respect your opinions and your advice and your guidance, and thank you for listening to my circumstance as well. But we're also interested to provide and learn from the community what we can do with outreach to any other specific out in our community of Chelmsford as well. So in saying that, I'd like to maybe hear from Megan on some other, I heard the little term "eat the rainbow" the other day, and I thought that was just a Skittles candy commercial of the rainbow. I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually a real thing. So, So, Megan, if you could help us understand a little bit from the nutritional aspect, how we can help ourselves to stay as healthy as possible beyond, currently and beyond.
Absolutely. I think this is such a great idea that you come up with.
Thank you.
And I loved Jen's idea of the difference between self-care and self-soothing, because I think a lot of us use food to soothe ourselves. Yeah. We've lost a lot of control in our life, and that's very unsettling, and it makes us feel, we need to feel empowered in this situation where a lot of us are at home. We're sort of just waiting for the news. When will this be over? What can we do? We're social distancing, which is really important, wearing masks and gloves when we go out, but really what else can we do? And the best thing we can do is control what goes into our body. And we actually can boost our immune system through the right foods, but there's also foods that can weaken our immune system. And I think that's really important to see the difference. So a lot of the self-soothing that we're doing with cakes and processed foods and things that we probably wouldn't have access to or eat, things that have a long shelf life that we've sort of thought we had to hunker down and get all these Cheez-Its and things that are going to live on the shelf for the next 100 years. Those things actually will weaken our immune system. So refined sugar is something that's in everything that we eat. And that's something that actually will weaken our immune system. The best thing we can do is load up on the things that everyone has been telling us forever, which is fruits and vegetables in a varied degree. So eating the rainbow, the idea behind that is every single fruit and vegetable, every color has a different nutrient. A lot of elderly people have sort of a micronutrient deficiency because they're eating less, but they're also eating less varied foods. Sometimes it's due to oral issue, their teeth, they can't crunch down on nuts anymore, or they have a lot of sensitivity to certain fruits, vegetables. Sometimes the skin upsets their stomach. So they're facing their immune system, also they're producing less T cells. So their immune system is a little more deficient going into all of this. But we can really think of it as a way to empower ourselves by, really thinking about what we're eating. A lot of people I work with, their biggest complaint is, I don't have time to cook. I don't have time. Now we have nothing but time. So now we can take advantage of that and go on Pinterest and look up recipes. We can pull out our old cookbooks that are collecting dust in the corner and flip through and try to find a new recipe that we want to try, and focusing on whole foods. So fruits, vegetables, grass-fed beef and dairy is really important. Not getting it from, factory farms, but really farms that have sustainable practices. Their meat and dairy has more omega-3 in it. Same thing with wild fish and wild tuna. If it's wild, it has omega-3s, which are really important for everything in our body, but especially heart health. Omega-6 has the opposite effect and produces more inflammation. And they're finding that foods, meat that you get in the package at Market Basket that you have no idea where it came from, that actually is higher in omega-6. So you think you're eating well, but now you're actually getting a little bit more inflammation. And a lot of, beef and a lot of heavy dairy is actually mucus producing. So if we're thinking about an upper respiratory virus, kind of keeping that in mind as we're choosing our foods is really important. So on that front too, staying hydrated, drinking a lot of water. I think, people are, I know myself, I'm just getting till 5 o'clock till I can have my glass of wine, but all until then, I'm trying to drink as much water as I can. Water fuels every system in our body. And it also helps clear mucus. So if you're worried about any kind of upper respiratory issue, just think that's something very simple that you can do. Eating foods that contain, a lot of vitamins and minerals, the deeper the color, the more nutrients it has. So for example, if you're going to eat an apple, eat the skin, because that's where the color is. So my kids used to love to peel apples, and I was happy they were eating them. But once I kind of enlightened them a little bit about that's where all the nutrients are, then telling kids about what they're eating too is a big thing. And just taking whatever you're eating normally and making it from scratch. So jarred tomato sauce, for example, has a lot of sugar in it, which we don't think about. But you can make your own tomato sauce very inexpensively with, just crushed tomatoes and basil and a little onion and garlic and a little olive oil. And then you've got a huge batch of sauce that will last for a long time.
Well, it sounds like I need to get some of your recipes pretty soon.
I do. I actually have been putting some recipes, videos together, which is awful. But I hate to see myself on camera. But they just kind of sending them out to people who want them, especially cooking with kids. I think we don't have home ec in the school systems anymore. And this is a great time to teach our kids how to cook. My son is 15, and he fought me tooth and nail to get him to make dinner with me the other night. But he actually, he liked it. He said,
Great.
But just teaching kids where our food comes from, why it's important, talking about the nutrients going into your body and giving them that feeling of empowerment. Like you're at home and you're stuck
Right.
here, but you
Yeah.
can build up this army inside of you. Your immune system is like an army, and it's going to fight off these germs when they come in. And wouldn't it be amazing if you could get it as strong as you could? I think
I
that
think what you're saying, and what you're saying too, is it applies to all of, all of us equally, whether we're elderly, young, old, working, not working, and I think that's when Jen had seen the value of having you contribute to the discussion on the aspect of nutrition versus, social health, mental health, physical health, all of those types of things. I think, it's all very relevant to what we're experiencing today, very important. I think that we're going to wrap it up for this discussion at this time, but it would be great to come together again and contribute more and learn what else we could do to provide our community. And I love that word empowerment. We heard it a few times today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.